Mike Bohn here in Los Angeles for Bellator 286, joined right now by Coach Brandon Gibson, one of the best in the game, man. You're here with Aaron Pico, obviously, another fight for him as he continues his ascent. Just tell me how you feel he's looking going into this fight with Jeremy Kennedy.
We're excited. We've prepared for Jeremy Kennedy before. We were supposed to be matched up with him in April, and unfortunately he had an injury, pulled out a week prior, and now it's been rebooked. So we've had months and months and months to train and prepare for Jeremy Kennedy, as they have to prepare for Aaron Pico. But I think it's gonna be a great matchup. Kennedy, I think he has a 19-3 record. He's been in there with guys like Volkanovski. He's faced some of the best, but I think Aaron brings a lot of tools that are gonna get his hand raised on Saturday night.
I had the chance to speak with him at Media Day, of course, and he just seemed in such a good place. I mean, I know he's talking a little bit about, could this lead to the title fight finally and everything, but obviously need to be focused on the moment as well, because none of that stuff comes without victory. So are you seeing him particularly locked in, more so than usual, or is this just kind of for him the next step on the journey to that belt?
I think it's a combination of both. We've seen Aaron over the course of his career continue to develop not only his MMA arsenal, but his IQ of the sport. And each camp, he just adds that much more to it. He's continued to work with the brilliant Greg Jackson. This camp, he's added actually Carlos Condit to help out with some of his MMA games. So he's always seeking out that knowledge, always seeking out great mentors, and becoming ever so refined and honed in on his process altogether, like his training regimen, his strength and conditioning, his diet, his nutrition, and then putting more and more time into studying his opponent and the overall game.
How did the training with Carlos come around? Obviously, he's there, but we know he's retired now. So, is that something that, because you have such a good relationship with Carlos, be like, hey, I think it would be good for you guys to work together? Does he volunteer? How does that all really work out?
Yeah, I think, it's just Albuquerque is a small community, and all of us are Greg Jackson's students, and I think everybody's vested in helping to pass on the torch to the next generation. And we all see Aaron as one of those flag bearers for the Jackson Wink Gym, and so Aaron and Carlos just kind of developed a natural relationship, and the work just evolved. It just came naturally, and I was happy to see those guys working together and sharing knowledge and ideas. And Carlos was just singing Aaron's praises. He's such a gifted athlete. He's so intelligent. He just soaks up everything so fast and then can apply it in training. So now we're looking forward to seeing him apply it on fight night.
It must just be so invaluable to someone. It feels like he's been around for a while, but he's still so young in his career. He's talking about when Tony Ferguson was in there and how helpful that was as well, to have these guys who are just seen and done it all in the sport share that with someone like him, who's obviously seems to be like a sponge. Can you see the things that they share with him showing up right away in his game?
Oh, absolutely. And even Jon Jones called this morning to put some wisdom on Aaron, and just days like today, like a media frenzy day. So it's great to see all of these experienced champions helping share knowledge and experience with Aaron as well. And we see him soak it up, and we see him apply it. And you see him in here today, dapper and executing the interviews flawlessly, and still focus on the task at hand.
Just such a pro. It's unbelievable, and I think Bellator is kind of showing us maybe their hand a little bit, putting him on the same card with this title fight here. I talked to Aaron. He said, it would be his preference probably if Borks wins, just because he'd love, he thinks it would be a fairy tale story to be able to get the title, avenge that loss and everything. Do you align with that line of thinking, or everyone looks at Patricio Pitbull as the Bellator GOAT? Do you feel like it would mean more to maybe take the belt off him?
I think, no matter where our road goes, I think Aaron's going to be prepared for it. And I think there'll be a great story there, because Aaron is, this young prospect that kind of had everything on his shoulders, and he showed his resiliency, he showed his fortitude, he showed his determination to be in this position where he is now. So whether it becomes a rematch with Borks one day, which I know will happen, they're both young, great fighters, that fight will come one day. Maybe it's for the belt, or whether it's against one of the GOATs in Patricio Pitbull, to dethrone somebody like that would mean a lot as well. But I know Aaron is all eyes on Jeremy Kennedy and that fight, and we're just going to take it one step at a time.
And if he does get that belt, that's a whole other layer of, pressure that comes, exposure, all those things. And, you mentioned Jon Jones there. We've seen people go through this. Do you feel like his mind is kind of bulletproof in that regard? Are you not worried about what could happen to him if he does reach that level of success and it just keeps growing and growing and growing?
I think Aaron is at a place now at 26 years old where he's ready for any opportunity, and I know he has strong people around him. I know his own strength and resiliency. I don't worry about his character changing with some extra dollar figures or a gold belt. Like, I know who Aaron is, and he's going to continue to make us proud, and his family proud, and his friends proud, no matter what the opportunities come in his career.
Very interesting. And I have to ask you as well, Tony Ferguson, his name came up. You were in the corner, for the whole Nate Diaz UFC drama. That entire week was just madness. Like, what was going through your mind as just everything's unfolding and then you hear the opponent changes on such short notice? Were you just kind of going with the flow? Did you insert your opinion at all of like, hey, maybe do this, don't do this?
Tony's a great champion, and I was happy to see him get the opportunity to fight Diaz. It was crazy to show up for weigh-ins on a Friday morning and then see just the course of the day and how it went. And all respect to Diaz. Like, he's a game fighter. He was prepared for a 5-round fight. Tony was scrappy in there. I think he had really good moments. There's a lot of back and forth, right? It truly was. And I think Tony was able to show his toughness, his grit that he always has in fights. It was good to see him in there with another veteran and another OG. Obviously I wish that we would have had a different result, but, all respect to Diaz, and I wish him all the best moving forward.
What were the conversations with Tony afterwards? Do you guys intend to continue working together going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. We were just speaking today, and I look forward to seeing him out in Albuquerque. And if I get a moment to step away from Pico this week, I would be totally down to link up with Tony and get some work in. And Tony has a great team around him, and that week I think we developed an even stronger relationship. So I look forward to taking that next step together.
Is it tricky when you get in a situation like that? Because obviously you work with a new guy. You want the results to show up right away, but it's not always the case, right? People go to new gyms, new coaches. It takes a while for the things you want to implement in them to show up in the cage. So did you see, certain things? Like, did you like what you saw despite the result wasn't what you guys wanted, but did you like what you saw out of him in terms of what you were trying to get him to do and share with him as you worked together?
Yeah, absolutely. Tony had a great team around him, so I was honored to be a part of it. Kenny Johnson was there, young Caleb Walsh, the boxing prospect, was there, Juan, the Brazilian samurai. He has a great team around him. So, the early fight weeks, I think it's a lot for the coaches to kind of absorb, the fighter's character, their process, their rhythms, and the rest of their team, and everybody was kind of just getting to know each other a bit. And yeah, then went the roller coaster of how the week went. I think the team really work cohesively together very well, and I think we'll continue to carry that.
Do you like him at 170 going forward, or do you think 155 would be a better fit?
I'll leave that up to Tony and the matchmakers. I would like to see Tony up against some other vets. I like him fighting some of these more tenured fighters, and I'm sure Tony can continue to make 155 no problem. And if he stays at 170, I think there's some room for growth, in his strength, his size, and have a longer camp to really prepare for an opponent than one day.
Yeah, right, exactly. Do you hope he takes a little time off, or would you want to see him fight again soon, or is that again something that you kind of leave up to him?
Yeah, I'll leave that up to him. I know he's back in the gym and already working hard, and that's something I truly admire and respect. And he's just a martial artist in all things, so he's just right back to work. And I'm excited to see him again soon.
Last thing on him, is the training with him as crazy as the memes and the thing that the fans think is what it is, or do you have to reel him in to a degree? What was that like?
No, he's a brilliant martial artist, and I didn't see anything wild. I saw very structured, regimented, focused work out of him in his grappling, in his striking, in his wrestling, and his preparation. So Tony was super focused. I learned a lot working from him. It was an honor for me. He's a champion in the game, and he's truly one of a kind. So it was a good experience. That's
awesome. And I have to ask you about Jon Jones as well. I guess, do you know anything about when we might see him? I know they were talking about December, and it's all kind of seems to be down to the opponent at this point. I know Dana White says that he's ready to fight. It just seems to be is going to be Stipe? Is Francis going to resign with the UFC? What are you hoping happens here? Do you just want to see him back in there soon?
We're just staying ready. It's been a long process, and I feel very confident with the work he's done to rebuild his body into heavyweight, and the work we've been doing almost the last it's coming up on 3 years. I'm very proud of. Jon is has put in the work. There's no shortcuts in this game. There's no shortcuts, and he's really continuing to develop all elements of his game. And whether it's December or whether it's another date, whether it's Stipe or Francis or another opponent, we're just focused on Jon and his growth. And at the end of the day, somebody's going to have to fight Jon Jones, which I think is a big task for any other fighter as well. So we just continue to control what we can, and that's making Jon Jones the best martial artist he can be. And whenever that day comes, or whenever we have the date and the opponent, I think we're just ready. We're ready to shift a gear and get him to that heavyweight championship. And I'm very confident that he will become heavyweight champion of the world.
And I know he's always said when talking about heavyweight, like, I'm going to do it the right way. I'm not just going to take a fight in 3 months and, show up at, 215 or something. He always said it was going to be a while. I don't think any of us thought it would be 3 years between fights, but when you see him doing that bodybuilding and changing process, like, are you seeing a drastic difference in like how he operates, or is it like, how would you kind of describe how he has evolved his physique?
Yeah, I think it's been kind of this mountain climb, right? There's been some peaks and valleys, but finding the best spot for his strength to match his cardio, to match his martial arts techniques and movements. I think we've really been able to hone it in, and now when it's time to sign a contract and camp begins, he's going to be ready. He's going to be very well prepared, and it reminds me in some ways of George St. Pierre's move up to middleweight. He didn't do that right away. He really changed his body, kept his technique sharp, and went out there and won the middleweight championship. I think Jon's going to be very similar. As he's going to come in and he's going to be used to whatever weight he ends up coming in at, he's going to be firing on all cylinders.
I know he's pound for pound GOAT for a reason. And very well rounded. But I feel like when you look at the heavyweights, the ground game is something that for a lot of them is lacking, and Jon could maybe be extremely dominant there, that element of his game. Do you look at that same way? Like, do you feel like, of course, the striking, those guys hit hard, and sometimes it's a coin flip when it comes to heavyweight fights, but if you can go to the ground and dominate there, I mean, do you feel like that's kind of an X factor that he's just, maybe the gap is very significant there?
I think there's a lot of areas that Jon could exploit at heavyweight. He has such a wide arsenal of techniques. He's so dangerous. But you're right, there's a lot of heavyweights that are great boxers. They're great in the clinch. But Jon's wrestling is on another level. His ground and pound's on another level. His jiu-jitsu's on another level. And then just the full spectrum of his striking arsenal, I think, is on another level. So Jon's going to bring a lot to the table at heavyweight that I don't think we've ever seen another heavyweight bring.
Are you mostly, is he mostly working with you? I know he had bounced around a couple gyms, but would you say that the majority of his training has been with you of late?
Yeah, Greg Jackson, Roberto Alencar, myself, Coach Alex Existo, we put in a lot of work with Jon day in and day out. So, Jon's in Albuquerque, we're working hard. We have a great team around him, and, we're just staying quiet. We're staying in the shadows, and we're putting in that work, and it will shine on fight night.
And there's just so much curiosity around him, right? Because he hasn't done many interviews, and for good reason. And I think it's part of the. It's great. It just makes it more intriguing when the time comes. But I guess as someone who does have that personal connection to him, is it all good? On his end, does he seem in very positive spirits? How would you describe just him in general as a person right now?
I see Jon happy. I see Jon focused, and I see him very motivated on capturing this goal that he's set for himself. So I'm happy, and I can't wait to make that walk with him. It's going to be special.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to it. Anyone else you're working with right now that we didn't touch on that you'd like to mention?
The team's just good vibes right now, and primarily I'm focused on Aaron Pico on Saturday. This Jeremy Kennedy is a tough task, and I'm expecting fireworks from young Pico, and we're going to keep the streak going. So,
awesome. Looking forward to it. Appreciate the time, Coach, and we'll talk soon.